We begin today the Gemara on Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph, towards the top of the Amud, where it says Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya. The first word on the line is bidei. So the Gemara here was discussing the halacha of inspecting an animal, a b'chayr, to see if it has a mum or not. There was a machlokes in the Mishnah on Daf Chavav Amud Aleph between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, whether you're allowed to inspect the behema on Yontif. In that Mishnah, it was speaking specifically about the behemoth that fell into a pit, as the Gemara explained, what the chiddush is. But the basis of their machlokes was whether inspecting an animal for a mum is considered to be like masakin. You're like fixing something, you're preparing it, you're repairing it to be able to be used for Yontif, or as Rashi said, it's like a special psak din of the mumche, and that's not allowed to be done on the Yontif. So Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to, and Rabbi Shimon says ein ze min hamucha, you're not allowed to. So in the next shtickle of the Gemara here, it's going to try to figure out whether we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Shimon. Zok the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda Nesiya havale ahu buchra. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi had a buchar, so it was Yontif, and it had to be inspected to know if it could be eaten or not. If it has a mum kavua and it could be eaten. Shadre lekamei de Rabami. So he sent it to Rabami. So Sava de loy lemechse. So Rabami decided that he doesn't want to see, he doesn't want to look and inspect it for its mum on Yontif. Amalei Rab Zrike, Vitaim Rab Yirmiyah, so Rab Zrike, or others say Rab Yirmiyah, said to Rabami, Rabbi Yehuda Rab Shimon, halachic Rabbi Yehuda. We have a rule that any time there's a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon, we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda. This is a Gemara in Erevin that discusses all the different Tanoim, what the rule is, who you paskin like, and the halacha is always like Rabbi Yehuda. So why shouldn't we say here the same thing, that we paskin like Rabbi Yehuda, that the mumche is allowed to inspect the mum and Yontif? So he went and sent his p'chayr to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafche to inspect it for a mum. He also thought that it's not the right thing on Yontif to see this mum. Amalei Rabbi Yirmiyah Rabbi Zrike, so Rabbi Yirmiyah or Rabbi Zrike said to him, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Shimon, halachic Rabbi Yehuda. We have a rule that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda, so why don't you want to paskin like Rabbi Yehuda? Amalei Rabbabe, so Rabbabe says to Rabbi Zrike, my time lo yishavketinu l'Rabbanon l'mevd uvdek Rabbi Shimon. Why don't you want to allow the Rabbanon, the Chachamim then, to follow the opinion of Rabbi Shimon and to be stringent, to be machmer? Amalei, so he said back to him, va'at ma b'yotcha, and what do you have in your hands that you know that over here the halacha should be like Rabbi Shimon, unlike the rule usually is that the halacha is like Rabbi Yehuda? Amalei, so he said to him, Hachi Amar Rab Zeira, this is what Rab Zeira said, halacha Rabbi Shimon, that in this case it's an exception and we do paskin like Rabbi Shimon. Amar Mandahu. So one of the Talmidim that was there, which we don't know who it is, but he said, Eski, I should merit ve'esek lahasam, and I'll go up to Eretz Yisrael, ve'egmer l'shmaite mipumi demara, and let me learn this halacha from the mouth of the master that said it. Let me hear from Rab Zeira himself, that lived then in Eretz Yisrael, to hear that he actually said it, the halacha is like Rab Shimon. Kisalik lahasam. So when this Talmud went to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechil Rab Zeira, he found Rab Zeira. Amalei, so he said to him, Amar halacha Rab Shimon. Did the master say that the halacha is like Rab Shimon? Amalei, so Rab Zeira answered him, Loi, I didn't say that the halacha is like Rab Shimon. I didn't definitively say so. Ano mistavrami. What I said is that it's logical to say that in this case we should paskin like Rab Shimon. Why? Midiktani b'masnisin, because we had the Mishnah where it said the opinion of Rab Shimon. Rab Shimon oime kol shei mum nikim b'yayim ein ze min hamuchan, that if the mum is not already noticeable from before Yontif, so then you can't have a mumche inspected on Yontif. And then v'ketani lo b'braisa, the same halacha that Rab Shimon said was also taught in the braisa b'loshen chachamim, and in the braisa is brought in the name of the chachamim. This is a braisa that was brought in the Chavava Mid Beis. The Gemara brought that Rav Oishia brought this braisa, and in the braisa it says the same halacha, but it says v'chachamim aimrim. So we see that this is the opinion that was accepted in the name of the chachamim. So Shmami no mistavrik kavasei. So from here I see that we follow the opinion of Rab Shimon that was said in the name of the chachamim. Ma yavi Allah. So what was the conclusion about this subject? Do we actually follow the opinion of Rab Shimon? Even Rab Zeira himself didn't say so definitively. So what's the actual halacha? Amar Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef says, Toshamal, bring your raya, the talya, ba'ashle Rav Revi. That this is dependent on a thick rope. In other words, that there are a few strong opinions that we can put together. It's not only Rab Shimon that holds this way, that's stringent about this, and just like a thick rope that you can't snap so quickly, so this is also something that we can rely on, that this is the halacha. And he brings the source for this. Rab Shimon ben Pazi, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, Rabbi Yosi ben Shol, Rebbe. So Rebbe said it, Mishum Kahole Kadisha de Yerushalayim, in the name of the holy congregation in Yerushalayim. There are different opinions exactly which Tanoim these were, but these were certain Tanoim in Yerushalayim that were called the Kahole Kadisha. And they said, so what did the Kahole Kadisha say? Rab Shimon v'chavei Rav Amru, that Rab Shimon, and this is Rab Shimon ben Menasya, as Rashi here says, Rab Shimon ben Menasya and his friend said that halacha ke Rab Meir, that the halacha is like Rab Meir regarding the halacha of inspecting b'chayres, which the Gemara is going to bring in a moment, the Mishnah in Masechta B'chayres, where there's a machlekes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda regarding inspecting the b'chayres. So the Kahole Kadisha said that Rab Shimon and his friend said that we paskin like Rab Meir. So the Gemara interjects here and explains what exactly did this Kahole Kadisha say. It's not really possible to say that the Kahole Kadisha was quoting Rab Shimon. So the Gemara says, Amru, the Kahole Kadisha said in the name of Rab Shimon ben Menasya, V'ha'inu kshishi minei tuva. The Kahale, the Tanoim that were part of this holy congregation of Yerushalayim, were much older than Rab Shimon ben Menasya. Rab Shimon ben Menasya was a contemporary of the later Tanoim, of Rebbe, Rab Yudah Nasi. And the Kahole Kadisha was from an earlier generation. Why would they be quoting Rab Shimon ben Menasya that was younger than them? So the Gemara explains, Ella b'shittas Rab Meir amrua. They weren't quoting Rab Shimon. Rather, what they were saying is, when they heard what Rab Shimon had said, although Rab Shimon was younger than them, so they observed and said that this that Rab Shimon said, he was saying something in the name of Rab Meir, and he was paskening according to Rab Meir. And Rab Meir was from the earlier Tanaim, was much older than them. But it's not that they were quoting Rab Shimon ben Menasya. They just observed about what Rab Shimon said, that he was quoting and paskening like Rab Meir. Now, what is this statement of Rab Meir regarding B'chayres that they were referring to? So the Gemara brings there the Mishnah. Now, it says in the Mishnah, Masechta B'chayres, HaSheichet es HaB'chayr, a person that shechts a B'chayr, and v'achakach heres mumay, and only after he shechted the B'chayr, does he take the animal and he shows the mumche, the mum that it has, to see if it's a mum, the mum kavua, permanent mum, that you're allowed to eat it or not. Rabbi Yehuda matir. Rabbi Yehuda says, even after the fact, once it was shechted and you show the mum, you can eat it. But Rav Meir hoyel v'nishchat shalei pi mumche. Since it was shechted, not by first showing it to a mumche to inspect the mum, aser. You're not allowed to eat the animal. In other words, we have here a machlokes. Are you allowed to have the mumche check it after it was shechted, or the mumche must check it before? Even if you see that there's a mum, you can't rely on what you see. The mumche has to establish first that this is a mum kavua, and only then could you shecht it. That's the machlokes. So what the Gemara now explains, what do we see from here? Al Mekesav Rab Meir. So we see that Rab Meir's opinion regarding this halacha of the mum being inspected by a mumche, Re'iyas b'chayr lav kir'iyas treifa. Inspecting the b'chayr to see that it has a mum is not similar to inspecting an animal to see that it's not a treifa. Why? Re'iyas b'chayr mechayim. This halacha that you have to inspect the b'chayr, that has to be done according to Rab Meir when the animal is still alive. Riyas treife is la'acha shchita. But inspecting the animal to make sure it's not a treife, that could be done even after the shchita. So there's a very big difference between them. Okay, so now from this, based on this, Rab Shimon came and said, Umina, from this opinion of Rab Meir, we say, Driyas treife, if you shech the animal on Yontif, and you have to inspect it to make sure that it's not a treife, so that could be done a filabi Yontif. But Riyaz B'chayr, to come and inspect the B'chayr, to see that it has a mum kavur, that you're allowed to eat it, may Erev Yom Tov. That has to be done from before Yom Tov. So Rashi explains, how did Rab Shimon take this from the opinion of Rab Shimon? How did Rab Meir take this from the opinion of Rab Shimon? Because since we see here that when it comes to the Riyah, to check it for a mum, this is something that the Chachamim gave a strong chshivas to it, that it's something that must be done before Shchita. So therefore, this is matter the whole shchita. It's the whole heter of the b'chayr is dependent on this. So when you come and you do this on Yontif, you're mesakin. You're like repairing the animal. You're making it right to eat. It's like giving a special psak din, and therefore can't be done on Yontif. Whereas the treifa, since that can be done even after shchita, it does not have the same chshivas. It's not as strong as a heter as it is by the riyah of the mum, and therefore that could be done on Yontif. So based on Rab Meir's opinion that established such a strong requirement that it has to be done before Yontif, that's the basis to say that this can't be done. Again, it has to be done before the shechita, that is. That's the basis to say that it can't be done on Yontif. So what does it come out over here? That the problem, or this opinion, that you can't inspect the animal from a mum on Yontif is both Rab Shimon's opinion that we had before in the Mishnah, Rab Shimon ben Yochai, and now over here, Rab Shimon ben Menashe is telling us that this is also Rab Meir's opinion. That because Rab Meir holds that it has to be done before Shechita, so he also holds it can't be done on Yontif. So this is what Rav Yosef was bringing over here to say that it's a Ashli Ravri. You have two opinions, two very strong opinions that are saying that the inspection of the mum cannot be done on Yontif. Malay Abaye, so Abaye says to Rav Yosef, Otu Hasam, Beroyin Mumim Pligi. Over there, is there a machlokes that you could say that it's connected regarding this halacha we're saying here, whether you're allowed to inspect the mum on Yontif or not? B'knasa pligi. Over there, the machlokes between Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda regarding someone that shechted the animal and then has the mumcha inspected afterwards, whether it's mutter or aser, that is a completely different machlokes. It's not because Rab Meir held that this is something that's more chashav and the heter has to happen dafka before shchita. Chachamim established it dafka at that point and not later. Nothing to do with that. The fact that Rab Meir says that if you inspect the animal after shchita, you're not allowed to eat it, it's simply a knas for not fulfilling a gzeira midrabanan. Not because it has a more chshivas and being matter more than it is by the case of a treifa. And the Gemara explains what this knas is about. So Rabbi Bar Chana explained over here this machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Bedukin sheba'ayin. If this animal, the mum that it had, this b'chayr, the mum that it had was dukin, a cataract in the eye, kula amolei pligi, so Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda would not argue the osir, that if you didn't inspect it before the animal was shechted, so then it's going to be osir to eat this animal. Why? Mishum de mishtanen. This is a kind of mum that the nature of this mum changes after the shechita. Even if after the shechita it looks like it was a permanent mum, but it could be that before the shechita you would have seen that it really was just a temporary mum. So you can't inspect it after the shechita. So in such a case, everybody agrees it has to be inspected before. Ki pligi, the machlokes of Rab Meir and Rab Yehuda was b'mumin shebeguf, other kinds of mumin that are in the body that don't change before and after shechita, after the shechita that is. So over here, in such a case, there's a machlokes whether the bedika after shechita would be good enough. Rab Meir says gazrinon mumin shebeguf or to mumin shebai. There's a gzeira that in order not to confuse and not to come to be baidik, the mum of the eye after shechita, they said that no mumin could be inspected after shechita. So it's a gzeira mit Rabbanan. Rab Yehuda savar, and Rab Yehuda says loy gazrinon. Rab Yehuda says no, there's no such a gzeira regarding a mum that it's clear you could inspect it after shechita like before, so you can inspect it afterwards. So what do we see over here? The basis of the opinion of Rab Meir that you have to inspect the mum before shechita is not because Chachamim gave a special chshivas to this halacha of inspecting it, it's a special heter that has to be dafki before. No, it's a gzeira midrabanan that you shouldn't confuse a regular mum with the mum that's a cataract in the eye that you can't inspect afterwards. And therefore, the pshat what Rab Meir says that if you inspected the mum after shechita, it's going to be aser. The reason is it's just a knas because you weren't mekayim the gzeira of Chazal that they were geyser, so therefore they aser it. That's the pshat in this, but not that it has a special chshivas, a special heter before shechita dafke. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, the language of the Mishnah where Rab Meir says his opinion is also clear that this is the pshat. The Ktani, because it says Rab Meir said hoyil v'nishchat shaloi al pi mumche. The reason why it's aser is because since it was shechted without giving it to the mumche first, and therefore aser. So what does he say? He doesn't just say that because he didn't do the bedika before from the mumche, so therefore it's going to be aser. If you're going to say like the original pshat, like Rav Yosef was suggesting, that Chachamim fixed the time that it must be done before, and that has a special chshivas to be matter, not because of any gzeira. So then he should have said that he didn't do the bedika of the mum in the right time, so it's aser. That's not what he says. Rav Meir says, since you shechted it, shaloi al pi mumche, therefore it's aser. Shma mina, knasu, the kakanis. So from this language we see that it's because you didn't follow the gezeira of Chazal that they were geyser, and that every mum should be similar to the dukin sheba'ayin. So therefore, because of this knas, they said that if you did it with the yeved, it should still be yasser. Shma mina, this language shows that this is the pshat. So therefore, there's no raya over here. You can't put the opinion of Rab Meir together with Rab Shimon. So the Gemara brings weiter regarding this subject. Ami Vardinoha, Ami that came from the place Vardinoha, Chazi Buchre de Beinesi Hava. He was the one that would inspect the woman by the house of the Nasi. B'yayim Tave on Yantiv lo Hava Chazi. He would not want to inspect the mum. Also v'amru leila Rabami. So they came and told Rabami about his custom that he doesn't inspect the woman on Yantiv. Amalahu. So Rabami said, Shapikavid. He's doing the right thing, not to inspect the mum on Yantiv d'lo Chazi. Fragt the Gemara, Eini, is this true? But for Rab Ami Gufei Chazi, Rab Ami himself would inspect the mum even on Yantiv. Sagt the Gemara, no, he wouldn't actually. Rab Ami ki Chazi me'es malav Chazi. Really, he already had seen the animal and saw what the mum was from before Yantiv. Ubi Yantiv shiuli kamishayel. Then when it came on Yantiv, he would go and ask the owner of the animal, Heichi the kayin, Heichi ava of the. What happened? How exactly did this mum happen? When you come to inspect the mum, besides inspecting the actual mum itself to see if it's just a temporary mum or it's a mum kavua and it's going to be allowed to eat, you have to also know how the mum happened. If the kayin makes the mum b'mezid, so then you're not allowed to eat it. So you have to know what happened over here with this mum, and you have to ask the kayin what happened. And Rashi actually says that he has to bring edim that the kayin, but kayin is not trusted. Kayinim were chashud that they go and make a mum to make it roi for them to eat. So a kayin has to bring edim that the mum happened on its own. So in the case over here by Yontiv, Rav Ami, if he didn't have any time before Yontiv to go through all the details to find out how the mum happened, so he would look at the mum and inspect it from before Yontiv, and then the questions about exactly how it happened and the edus for this, that he would get later on Yontiv itself. But he didn't inspect the mum on Yantiv itself. And the Gemara brings another case similar. Kiha da'ahu gavre, like this individual, the Aisi buchre lekamei de Rave. He brought a buchair to Rave, a panye the maila yom tove. It was the afternoon on Erev Yantiv, and have a Yosef Rave v'kachai f'reisha. And Rave was sitting and he was scrubbing his head. He was washing himself a Yantiv. So what did he do? Dali eine. Rave picked up his eyes, v'chazi l'mum, and he saw exactly what the mum was. And Amalei, he told this individual, Zilidna, you could go now, and V'sala Machar, come back tomorrow and we'll discuss it. Kiyasala Machar, when he came back tomorrow, Amar, so Rava says to him, Heichi hava ovda, how did this mum happen? Amalei, and the person told him, Have Yishadian Sari Bahach Gisa de Hutze. There were the Sa'idim, the barley, that were on this side of the fence. And the animal was on the other side of the fence, and Bahadi, the boy mechel, and wanted to eat the barley, it stuck its head into the fence, and it caught, it slit its lips, which is considered to be a mum kavua for the b'chayr. That's what happened. So Rava further inquired, Amalei, Dilma ad geramtele, was it you that actually did this? You caused this? In other words, you placed the barley there on the other side in order for the animal to go and try to get it and then to cause this mum? In other words, what Rava was saying is, even if you just cause the mum to happen, even if you don't make the mum directly with your hands, it's also not going to be allowed to be eaten. Amalei loy, so he said, no, I didn't do this, I didn't cause it. So here we see the story that Rava did the same thing. He didn't inspect for the mum on Yontiv itself. He inspected it before Yontiv, and then the details, the additional questions, he would inquire on Yontiv if he didn't have the time. But now the Gemara explains this halacha, Uminat Taimre, the Grama Aser. From where do we know that it's not only forbidden to actually make the mum of this b'chayr, but it's also not allowed to cause the b'chayr to get a mum. The Tanya, because we learned in the Beitza, it says in the pasuk mum lo yiyeh boy, that there should be no mum. You shouldn't make a mum in the kachim. So I only know that you shouldn't make a mum in this animal. Or others are great as shelo by mum, I believe, that you shouldn't have a mum there. Minayin shelo yigrem loy al yedei davar acher. How do you know that you shouldn't be the one that should even cause a mum through something else, not directly making the mum? And for example, shelo yavi batzek or dveila, you shouldn't bring dough or a fig v'yaniach le'agabi ha'ozen, and put it on the ear of the animal, and then a dog will come to take it and bite off his ear and create a mum. So how do you know you're not allowed to even cause a mum? Talmud loima kol mum. Because the pasuk there says, it doesn't say only mum le'yibay, it says kol mum le'yibay. Amar mum, it already says in the Torah mum, and v'amar kol mum, but then the Torah adds a kol to say that not only a mum, but even just to cause a mum is also not allowed. Zakt heilige Mishnah, behema shemeisa, a behema that dies on Yontif. Lo yizizena mim kaima. You're not allowed to move it from its place. It's muktzeh, it's not fit to be used for anything, so you have to leave it. Umaisa, there was once an incident, v'sholus Rab Tarfon aleh. They asked Rab Tarfon about an animal that died, and also they asked him about another halacha, v'alachale shenitmis. And regarding chale, that usually goes to the kayin, but it became tamei, and because it's tamei, the kayin can't eat it. And v'nichnas lebeis hamedrash, and Rab Tarfon went into the Beis HaMedrash v'shal, and he asked a question about these cases. V'amru, they told him, lo yaziza mim kaimam. You're not allowed to move it from their place. It's not fit for any use, so it's muktzeh. So Rashi here explains Barichas regarding the challah. Why is the challah not fit for use? So the reason is because we compare it to kachim. Just like regarding kachim, you're not allowed to burn kachim on Yontif, and Rashi brings a pasuk for it, that this sreifa, the havara of kachim on Yontif, is a chashuv thing that the Torah requires, and therefore it's considered to be like a malacha that you're doing on Yontif, and therefore you can't burn any kachim on Yontif, and that includes not only to burn it, but even to give it to a dog that's going to consume it is also a chashuv thing, and it's like a malacha that's not allowed to be done on Yontif. That's what Rashi says. Taisa says a bit different, but Taisa regarding this detail of comparing the challah to kachim asks that when it comes to kachim, when you burn kachim on Yontif, there's no anah you're having from this at all. You're burning it totally tzorech gavoya. But when you take trumeh or challah and you burn it on Yontif, so while you're burning it, you could also use it as a fuel in the fire to cook, to have anah from it. So the hana that you're having from it, why can't you have that hana on Yontif for cooking, or any hana saguf, even just to light a candle on Yontif, you're allowed. So why can't you use this challah shenitmis on Yontif? Why is it muktzeh? So Tosfos says, because the main reason you're burning it is l'tzayich gavoya, because that's what you're supposed to do with trumah tameya or challah shenitmis, you're supposed to burn it, and that's your main reason for burning it. Even if while you're burning it, there's also a tzayich hedyet, you're having a personal use of it, the personal use doesn't count. It's considered to be something which is done completely l'tzayich gavoya. That's what Tosfos over here says. So this Tosfos is a big chiddush, and the fact is, the lashon of Tosfos is that the tzorech gavoya, because it's mainly for tzorech gavoya, batulei tzorech hedyet. The fact that you're also having a personal use is totally batul. That doesn't count at all. So it's a big chiddush, this Tosfos. The fact is you are having a personal use of this. So there's a sikha from the Rebbe, it's in Chelik Yutes and Parashas Shoftim, where the Rebbe explains that just like we find a similar halacha regarding Haitzah on Shabbos, that if you have a food that doesn't have a shiur for the Isser of Haitzah, and you take it out in a keli, the keli has a shiur. But your main reason for taking it out is the oichel, the food. The keli is just a tuffle to the food. So then there's no isser of veitzah. There's no chiyuv of veitzah, because the keli is bottled to the food that's the ikr. It's a tuffle, and you're taking out the food. The keli is just containing the food in it. Similar over here, if you're doing something which is a mitzvah, which is tzorech gavoya, which is for a purpose, so that's the main thing. The world was created for that purpose, for this mitzvah. The fact that you're also having personal benefit from it while you're doing the mitzvah, that doesn't count. That doesn't matter at all. It's completely bottled to the main purpose of what you're doing for this. Zok the Gemara, so leime, shall we say, the halacha of the Mishnah, when you have a dead animal, that it's muktzeh, it died on Yontif, and it's muktzeh, tanan stam like Rab Shimon. That we have here a stam Mishnah regarding muktzeh, not like Rab Shimon. The Tanya, because we learned in the Beitza, and we had this in the beginning of the Masechta. Rab Shimon says, mechat chines hadeluin lifnei habeime. you're allowed to cut vegetables, pumpkin, for an animal to eat. This is not considered to be too much of a tirche to be done on Yontif. And if you had a dead animal that died on Yontif, so you're allowed to give it to feed it to the dogs. So that's what Rab Shimon says. In other words, Rab Shimon holds, even though it died on Yontif, it's not muktzeh, and you can feed it to the dogs. Rab Yehuda says, Im lo ya'isa nevela out of Shabbos. If it wasn't already a nevela from before Shabbos asura, then it's aser. Because it's muktzah. When Shabbos came in, it wasn't fit for this purpose to serve for the dogs, and therefore it's muktzah. So our Mishnah here that's saying that it's muktzah is following Rab Yehuda's opinion, not Rab Shimon. And for the Gemara, no, afilah taimer Rab Shimon. Really, I can tell you our Mishnah follows even Rab Shimon. Meid Rab Shimon bebalechayim shemesu shasurim. Rab Shimon would agree that if you have animals that died on Yontif, and Rashi explains, as we see from the continuation of the Gemara, that if you have an animal that was strong and healthy, when Yontif came in, you weren't expecting it to die at all, and then suddenly it dies on Yontif, in such a case, Rab Shimon would be made there, you weren't even thinking or planning at all to use this to feed for the animals, for a dog that is, so therefore, even he would agree that it's muktzah. So in our Mishnah, that's the case that we're speaking about. A healthy, alive, a strong animal that died, so therefore even Rab Shimon would agree. So the Gemara says, not everybody agrees that Rab Shimon agrees in this case. This is true according to Mara Bar Meiman, the name of Rave. The Amar that he said, that Rab Shimon agreed in a case where you have a strong animal that died suddenly on Yontif, that it would be aser. So shapir. So then we could say that our Mishnah goes according to Rab Shimon. But according to Mar, son of Rav Yosef, in the name of Rav, the Amma, he says, that Rab Shimon was arguing on Rabbi Yehuda even regarding a strong animal that died. In other words, they weren't only arguing according to the other opinion, the argument between Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon is only regarding an animal that is already, you see it's about to die. So, Rab Shimon says, because it's about to die, even though it was alive, when Ben Hashmashis, when the Yontif came in, but he was planning already to use it on Yontif, to feed to a dog, and therefore it's not muktzeh. Rabbi Yehuda says, even an animal that's about to die is still considered to be muktzeh. That's the machlokes. But according to this second opinion here, no. Even an animal that was strong, and you weren't expecting it to die, there's still a machlokes. Even there, Rab Shimon says, if it died on Yontif, it's not muktzeh, you can feed it to a dog. So according to him, what are we going to say? So seemingly our Mishnah cannot go according to Rab Shimon. We have a Stam Mishnah, not like Rab Shimon. So the Gemara says, Tirgeme Zi'iri. So Zi'iri explained what the case of our Mishnah with the animal that died is talking about. Behemas kotchim. Yeah, the Mishnah here is talking about a behema, not Stam a behema, but a behema of kotchim. So behema of kotchim that dies, it's asaba no. It's kotchim. You can't have any ano from it. You just have to bury it. And Rashi here says you can't redeem it on Yontif. After it died, you can't redeem it because it has to be a hamada v'aroche. It's not possible after the behemoth dies. Or even if, according to another opinion, where it is possible that holds that you could redeem it, but you can't. You're not supposed to redeem the kachim for the purpose to feed a dog. So therefore, once it dies, you can't redeem this. So it's asaba no. So you can't. So it's muktzah on Yontif. They kenami. I'll prove to you that this is what the Mishnah is talking about. The Ktani aleh. Because the Mishnah says also, together with this case, vala chala shenitmis, a chala that became tummy. Ma chala the kedisha, just like chala is something that's holy, that goes to a kayin, af behem in the kedisha. So too, the case of the animal that died is also a behem from kachim. And in such a case, even if Shimon agrees that it's muktzah, you can't use it for anything. So now the Gemara asks a question in the reverse. So Ella, time of the Kedisha. So from your diuk that you're saying over here, that the behema is similar to the chala, so the only reason why it's muktzeh is because this behema is kachim. Ha de chulin, but if it would be an animal which is chulin, sharia. If the behema died on Yontiv, it would be allowed to use to feed for the animal. Now the question is, according to his opinion, what did he say? That the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon is also regarding a strong animal that died on Yontif, and Rabbi Shimon holds that it's mutter, and Rabbi Yehuda holds that it's aser. So our Mishnah will go according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that in such a case, if it would be a Again, our Mishnah would go according to Rab Shimon, that is. Rab Shimon holds that if it would be a chulin animal, it would be mutter, and therefore our Mishnah is saying only because it's a kachim animal, similar to the challah, therefore it's going to be muktzah, therefore it's going to be aser. So Shapir, so then our Mishnah makes sense that it would follow Rab Shimon's opinion. But according to this opinion of Mar Barameim in the name of Rava, what did he say? That Rab Shimon agrees that you have an animal that dies on Yontif, that it's going to be aser. So in other words, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon agree that even a chulin animal, if it dies on Yontif, a strong animal that died on Yontif, it's aser to use it, it's muktzah. So then, what's the pshat in our Mishnah? According to whose opinion is our Mishnah going? Our Mishnah, according to the diak that we said, is saying that only because the behemoth is kachim, similar to challah, and it's asabana, therefore it's muktzah. But if it would be a behemoth of chulin, then it would be mutter. It wouldn't be muktzah. But according to this opinion, both Rabbi Yehuda and Rab Shimon agree that a behemoth of chulin that died is also going to be muktzah. Everybody agrees that it's aser. So who's our Mishnah going according to? The Gemara says, according to his opinion, you'll have to say, what is our Mishnah speaking about? Bimusukanis. It was speaking about an animal that wasn't a strong animal. It was an animal that was about to die. And therefore, in such a case, everybody agrees that an animal that's about to die, then if it died on Yontif, you're allowed to feed it to the dogs, it's not muktzah. And therefore, our Mishnah said, only because it's kachim, similar to challah, is it asabana, and therefore it's muktzah. You're not allowed to count a group of people to designate a price to go ahead and to buy an animal on Yontif. In those times, an individual alone didn't usually come to buy an animal, because how is he going to eat this whole entire animal? Where is he going to put it? He's no refrigeration. What is he going to do? So usually it was a group of people together that went to a butcher and bought an animal. So the Mishnah says you can't come on Yontif itself and set a price for him and buy this animal on Yontif. Aval nimnin aleh me'erev Yontif. They have to set the price. They come and they count the group and make the arrangements in advance before Yontif. Or v'sheichtin u'mechalkim beineim. Or if they didn't make the arrangements from before Yontif, they could go and take this animal and have it shechted on Yontif, and they divide it amongst them. And then after Yontif, they'll figure out what exactly they own. But they can't talk about the money and the price of this on Yontif itself. This is based on the general gzeira that we have, and as Rashi brings over here later in the Gemara, that this comes already from what it says in the Psukim of Nehemiah, that there was a gzeira not to make any business and sales on Shabbos and Yontif. Sagt the Gemara, "My ein nimnin." What's the meaning of these words? Ein nimnin. Ein nimnin just simply means that you don't count a group to be included in buying an animal. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, ein nimnin means ein poiskin domim lechatchila ala be'eme b'yomtiv. Ein nimnin doesn't just mean that you count a group together that's going to use this animal, but it's that they're setting a price lechatchila on Yontiv itself. That's the isser of mekach memkar on Yontiv. That's what it's speaking about. Okay, but now what did the Mishnah say? If they did not set the price from before Yontiv, so then they can take an animal on Yontiv and shecht it and divide it, and then later after Yontiv they'll figure out exactly what they owe this person that they bought it from. So the Gemara says, hey, chiyavid, what are they going to do? Now the problem is, after Yom Tiv, how is this person going to know to estimate what exactly they owe him for this animal? It was already cut up, it was already eaten, it's already gone. How is he going to know what they owe him? Amarav, so Rav explains, practically what you do is as follows. Maybe shtei behemis, you bring two animals, umamidan zu etzel zu, and you put the two animals one near the other, and Vayim, and he tells them, zu kizu, without saying explicitly in the price of exactly what it is, but he just tells them, look, you see these two animals, they're both similar. And then they take their animal and they shecht it and they eat it, and then after Yom Tif, you go and the other animal that's still alive, you can estimate and see from it what the price is. Tanya Nami Yochi, we learned in a Beitza, like Shmuel said, that the issue of nimnin is only if you're setting a price. Because it says in the Beitza, Lo yoim adam l'chaveirei, a person should not say to his friend on Yom Tif, Hareini imach b'sela, I am included with you in this group for this animal for the price of a sela. Or Hareini imach b'shtayim, I'm included with you for the price of two slaim. Aval oimeloi, he is allowed to say to him, Hareini imach l'mechze u'l'shlish u'l'reviyah, I want to be included with you to have half of the animal, a third or a quarter of the animal, without talking about the price, but just dividing between them the parts of the animal. And then after Yom Tov, they talk about the price, like Shmuel said.